Ethan Cole thought it was just another holiday shift at the 4th of July fair, until a little girl collapsed in the crowd. He saved her life in seconds. The next day, her mother walked into his clinic, not to thank him, but to beg him to hide them from a man who would do anything to silence her. Helping for one night should have been simple. Instead, it pulled Ethan into a deadly game tied to the worst mistake of his career. And a fight against people who never lose. Before we begin, drop a comment with where you're watching from. And don't forget to subscribe for more stories like this. Let's begin. The July heat was already pushing past 90, but the city's 4th of July street fair didn't care. Every block pulsed with music, frying oil, and 1,000 voices. Ethan Cole had seen his share of chaos in the back of an ambulance, but he was supposed to be off duty today, just a community medic in a folding chair beside the first aid tent, sipping lukewarm lemonade. Then the crowd shifted. A ripple of alarm. Somewhere ahead, a woman's scream cut through the brass band's trumpet. Ethan was on his feet before the cup hit the ground. The little girl lay crumpled near the kettle corn stand, face flushed, lips swelling, eyes wide with panic. Her mother knelt beside her, voice breaking. "She's allergic, peanuts, please." The EpiPen was in Ethan's hand before she finished. Years of muscle memory took over, thumb here, jab, count to 10, watch the chest rise again. The world narrowed to the girl's breathing and her mother's shaking hands clutching his arm like he was the only thing keeping them both upright. By the time the ambulance crew rolled up, the child's airway was clear and her eyes were blinking at the July sky like nothing had happened. Ethan gave the handoff, then faded into the crowd, waving off the mother's tearful, "Thank you." He'd done his job. But the next morning, the same woman walked into the clinic where he worked part-time, not with thanks in her eyes, but with fear. "My name's Samantha," she said quietly. "I need your help, but not the kind you think." Samantha looked nothing like the frantic mother from yesterday. Her hair was tied back, sunglasses hiding half her face, a canvas tote clutched so tightly her knuckles were white. Ethan guided her into the small exam room and shut the door. "Your daughter's okay?" he asked. "She's fine," Samantha said, voice low. "You saved her life. But that's not why I'm here." She glanced toward the frosted window as if expecting shadows to form behind it. "I need you to hide us. Just for a little while." Ethan blinked. "Hide you? From who?" Her answer came slow, like each word was dangerous. "My ex-husband." The name meant nothing to Ethan, until she added, "Daniel Harcourt." The Harcourt. Real estate mogul. Big money donor. The kind of man whose smile graced magazine covers while rumors about backroom deals stayed neatly buried. "He's about to be indicted for fraud," she whispered. "But before that happens, he's going to make sure I can't testify." "The girl you saved yesterday?" "She's my daughter, and she's the only leverage I have left." Ethan leaned back against the counter, trying to process it. "You're saying he'd hurt you to keep you quiet?" Samantha's eyes glistened, but her voice stayed steady. "He's done worse to other people for less. If he finds us, it's over." She took a breath. "I came to you because yesterday, in the middle of all that, you didn't hesitate. You didn't ask who we were. You just acted." Ethan crossed his arms. "And now you're asking me to break the law for you." "I'm asking you to keep a mother and her child alive," she said. "Just until I can get this evidence to someone who isn't on his payroll." Outside, someone's footsteps passed the door, slow, deliberate. Samantha's hand tightened on the tote. "Please, Ethan. I don't have anywhere else to go." Ethan's first instinct was to say no. He'd spent a decade hauling other people's emergencies into the back of an ambulance, but this was different. This was deliberate trouble, the kind that didn't clock out when you did. Then he thought about her daughter's face yesterday. The way the girl had blinked up at him like she was trying to memorize the first breath that didn't hurt. All right, he said finally. One night. I've got a place outside town. Samantha exhaled shakily, like she'd been holding her breath since she walked in. Thank you. He didn't ask what was in the tote until they were in his truck, cutting west toward the edge of the city. She hesitated. Proof, she said at last. Bank records. Signed contracts. Enough to put him away, if I live long enough to hand them over. By the time they reached his cabin, a weathered A-frame half hidden by pines, dusk was closing in. Ethan ushered them inside, locking both deadbolts out of habit. It was quiet for the first time all day. Too quiet. Samantha stood at the window, watching the long gravel drive. He has people everywhere. Security teams, lawyers, friends in the DA's office. I've been off the grid for a week. But yesterday. Her voice caught. Ethan stepped closer. Yesterday what? She turned toward him, her face pale in the lamplight. Yesterday wasn't an accident. The peanuts. She's never eaten them, I don't keep them in the house. Somebody wanted her in the hospital, Ethan. They wanted me distracted. A sharp crunch sounded outside, gravel under tires. Ethan moved to the window, every muscle going tight. A black SUV was crawling up the drive, its headlights off. The SUV rolled to a stop just shy of the porch, engine idling low. No plates on the front. Ethan's pulse thudded in his ears. Stay here, he told Samantha, already moving toward the front door. She caught his arm. If it's them. It's not a debate. He freed himself gently but firmly, grabbed the heavy mag light from the coat rack, and cracked the door just enough to step onto the porch. Two men climbed out of the SUV. Not deputies, wrong posture, wrong clothes. One wore a black windbreaker, the other a suit without a tie. Both had the easy stillness of people who'd been paid to wait as long as it took. Evening, the suit called. His tone was almost friendly. We're looking for Samantha Harcourt. Just need to talk. Ethan leaned against the porch post, forcing his voice to stay level. You got a warrant? That won't be necessary, the windbreaker said. Her ex is worried. Wants to make sure she's safe. Safe from what? Ethan asked. The two men exchanged a glance, and that told him more than any answer would. She's not here, he lied. The suit took a step closer. Then you won't mind if we take a look around. Ethan shifted the flashlight in his grip, letting the beam hit them square in the eyes. I mind a lot. Drive away while you still can say you asked nicely. For a moment, no one moved. Then the windbreaker smirked. We'll be back. The SUV reversed down the gravel drive, taillights bleeding red through the trees. Ethan shut the door, bolting it. Samantha stood in the hall, her daughter clutching her leg. They found us, she whispered. Ethan looked from her to the tote bag on the table. Then tomorrow, we stop waiting for them to knock. Ethan didn't sleep. He sat at the kitchen table until the first gray light seeped through the blinds, a mug of coffee going cold in his hands. By the time Samantha stirred in the spare bedroom, he had a plan, or at least the start of one. We can't stay here, he told her quietly as she joined him in the kitchen. If they came once, they'll be back with more. She nodded, eyes shadowed from a night of watching her daughter breathe. Where would we go? I know a place. Ethan hesitated. It's not much, but it's off the radar. My old friend runs a rescue ranch 3 counties over. He owes me. They packed quickly. Clothes, food, the tote of evidence. Samantha's hands shook as she zipped it closed. You're sure you want to do this? Helping me could cost you everything. Ethan almost laughed. Already been there. Her gaze searched his face. What happened? He leaned against the counter, the words tasting bitter. 3 years ago, I froze. A call came in, anaphylaxis, like your little girl. Traffic was bad, gear was slow to arrive, and I hesitated, thinking backup was seconds away. It wasn't. She didn't make it. Samantha's voice softened. That's why you didn't hesitate yesterday. He nodded once. I'm not making the same mistake twice. An hour later, they were on the road, Samantha's daughter dozing in the back seat. The highway unspooled ahead, long and empty. Ethan's shoulders began to loosen, until he spotted the black SUV in the mirror. Not behind them. Waiting on the shoulder ahead, angled toward the lane like a predator in tall grass. Ethan's grip tightened on the wheel. Hold on, he murmured. Samantha twisted in her seat, saw the SUV ahead, and went pale. That's them. The SUV pulled onto the pavement as they closed the distance, sliding into their lane. Not rushing, just blocking. Ethan checked the mirror. Another black vehicle had appeared behind them, keeping pace. They're boxing us in, he said. Stay calm. Don't let her see you're scared. Samantha turned to her daughter in the back. Sweetheart, put your seatbelt tight for me, okay? Ethan slowed, letting the front SUV edge closer, then abruptly swerved onto the gravel shoulder. Dust plumed behind them as he veered onto an unmarked service road. The rear SUV followed instantly. This isn't going to be a long chase, Ethan muttered. They're trying to push us somewhere. The narrow road twisted between scrub pines and old fence lines. Up ahead, the gravel dipped toward a low-water crossing. The runoff from last night's rain was still churning through it. Can your truck make that? Samantha asked. It has to. Ethan floored it, hitting the crossing in a spray of muddy water. The truck lurched but kept moving. Behind them, the pursuing SUV braked hard, the current was already pulling at its tires. They cleared the far side and didn't slow until the road widened into a sun-bleached stretch of pastureland. Samantha exhaled shakily. We bought a few minutes. That's all. Ethan nodded. Then we make them count. We get to the ranch, we get you safe, and we figure out how to put your ex in a cage. She gripped the tote tighter. And if we can't? Ethan looked straight ahead, jaw set. Then we take him down another way. The dirt road to the ranch wound between low hills and wind-worn oaks, the kind of place you could pass without ever noticing. By the time they reached the weathered gate, the truck's sides were streaked with mud, and Samantha's daughter was stirring in the back. Ethan leaned out and hit the horn twice, short, then long. A signal from years ago. For a moment, nothing. Then the gate creaked open, revealing a tall, broad man in a faded ball cap. His eyes lit when he saw Ethan, though his expression stayed wary. Cole, the man said. Didn't think I'd see you again unless it was trouble. Guess it's trouble, Ethan replied. Samantha, this is Mark Rudd. We worked search and rescue together before I left the city. Mark's handshake was brief but solid. He glanced at Samantha's daughter, then at the tote in her lap. Whatever's in there worth all this running? Enough to ruin a very rich, very dangerous man, Samantha said quietly. Mark led them to the main house, a squat, sun-faded structure with a wraparound porch and a view of miles of pasture. You can stay in the bunkhouse, he said. It's not fancy, but it's off the road, and the cell signal's garbage out here. That's the idea, Ethan said. As Samantha settled her daughter inside, Ethan pulled Mark aside. We've got maybe a day before they track us here. I need a place to stash that evidence where no one will think to look. Mark's brow furrowed. You're talking like you're expecting a siege. Ethan met his eyes. I am. Before Mark could answer, a faint glint caught Ethan's attention through the trees, sunlight on glass. He raised the binoculars from the porch rail. Half a mile out, on a ridge above the pasture, a black SUV was parked. Watching. Ethan lowered the binoculars slowly. They found us. Mark's jaw tightened. How far out? Half a mile. And they're patient, which means they're waiting for night. Samantha stepped onto the porch, sensing the change in the air. What is it? Ethan didn't sugarcoat it. We're not alone anymore. They spent the next hours moving supplies into the bunkhouse and securing every door and window. Mark handed Ethan a pump-action shotgun. You remember how to use this? Ethan gave him a look. I could strip it blindfolded. By sunset, the pastures had gone quiet. Too quiet. Samantha kept her daughter close, reading to her by the dim light of a lantern while Ethan and Mark took turns on the porch. It started just after midnight, the sharp pop of a light bulb on the side of the house shattering, plunging the porch into darkness. Ethan racked the shotgun. Here we go. Figures emerged from the tree line, black-clad and moving low. 3, maybe 4. No headlights, no wasted motion, professionals. Mark fired a warning shot into the air. One of the figures dropped to a knee, returning fire that splintered the porch railing inches from Ethan's arm. Ethan motioned toward the bunkhouse. Stay with them, he told Mark, then slipped off the porch into the shadows. He circled wide, using the low rise of the pasture to approach from the flank. The nearest man never saw him coming. Ethan hit him hard, knocking the rifle from his grip and sending him sprawling. Shouts broke out as the rest of the intruders realized their flank was compromised. 2 peeled off toward the bunkhouse, forcing Ethan into a dead sprint back toward the porch. Through the open doorway, he saw Samantha shove her daughter into the corner, clutching the tote bag like a shield. The first intruder reached the steps. Ethan didn't hesitate, he pulled the trigger. The blast lit the porch in a brief, brutal flash. The intruder crumpled, his weapon skidding across the planks. The second man froze, then bolted into the dark, disappearing toward the trees. Ethan stood in the doorway, chest heaving, scanning for movement. The night had gone still again, but it was the kind of stillness that comes before another storm. Mark appeared from the side of the bunkhouse, a nasty bruise already swelling along his jaw. One of them clipped me with a stock before I dropped him, he muttered. They pulled back fast. They weren't here to finish it, Ethan said, lowering the shotgun. They were here to see how we'd respond. Samantha was still crouched in the corner with her daughter, holding her close. She met Ethan's eyes. They know we're ready now. They also know where you are, he replied. This place isn't safe anymore. Mark frowned. If you run again, they'll just follow. You need a way to hit back. Ethan glanced at the tote bag. We have one. Samantha shook her head. It's not ready, the files need to be copied, backed up somewhere secure. If I hand it over too soon, it disappears into the system he owns. Then we find a place he doesn't own, Ethan said. Somewhere public, where his people can't just make us vanish. Mark leaned against the porch post, wincing at his jaw. That gives you, maybe 12 hours. After that, they'll come heavy. Ethan nodded slowly, the plan already forming in his head. Then we don't waste a single one. Somewhere out in the dark, an engine turned over, the watchers leaving their perch. Not retreating. Just repositioning. Samantha's voice was barely a whisper. This was only the beginning, wasn't it? Ethan met her gaze, steady. Yeah. But now we start playing offense. By dawn, the plan was in motion. Ethan loaded the tote into the truck, wrapping it in a tarp beneath the seat. Samantha rode up front, her daughter between them, still drowsy from a sleepless night. Their target wasn't a police station or courthouse, it was the Channel 8 newsroom in the city. Live broadcasts, multiple cameras, and an anchor Ethan trusted from years of watching her hold corrupt officials' feet to the fire. They reached the city just before noon, weaving through backstreets to avoid any tail. Ethan parked 2 blocks away, scanning the mirrors before they stepped out. Inside the lobby, Samantha clutched the tote like a lifeline. The receptionist's eyes widened as she recognized her. "Ms. Harcourt." "No time," Samantha cut in. "Get your investigative producer. Now." Within minutes, they were in a glass-walled conference room. A producer hit record as Samantha spilled everything: contracts, emails, bank statements, each page another nail in Daniel Harcourt's empire. Ethan watched the producer's expression shift from skepticism to outright shock. When it was done, the anchor herself stepped in, promising a segment that would air before the evening news. "Once it's live, it's untouchable," she said. They left through the back, but the victory felt fragile. It shattered completely when a black SUV skidded to a stop at the mouth of the alley. Daniel Harcourt stepped out himself, flanked by 2 men. "You think this makes you safe?" he sneered at Samantha. "All you've done is sign your own." A car horn blared. Mark's pickup roared into the alley from the opposite end, forcing Harcourt's men to scatter. "Get in," he shouted. Ethan shoved Samantha and her daughter into the truck, diving in after them. As they tore away, Samantha clutched Ethan's arm. "It's out there now. He can't bury it." Ethan allowed himself a tight smile. "Then maybe we can breathe again." That night, in a motel miles from the city, Samantha's daughter fell asleep between them, the soft murmur of the news carrying from the TV, the anchor detailing Harcourt's crimes in prime time. Footage of police raiding his offices played on loop, followed by the shot of Daniel Harcourt in handcuffs, scowling at the cameras as the words "federal indictment filed" flashed across the screen. Weeks later, the world was quieter. Samantha sold the house she'd been hiding from and bought a small one near Ethan's cabin. Her daughter learned the names of the horses at Mark's ranch. Ethan found himself laughing more than he had in years. On warm evenings, they'd sit on the porch, Samantha, her daughter, and Ethan, watching the sun sink into the pines, the air filled with nothing more dangerous than crickets. It wasn't just safety they'd found. It was trust. It was home. Samantha rested her head on Ethan's shoulder and whispered, "Feels like a second breath." Ethan smiled. "Let's make sure we never waste it." Thanks for watching. Like and subscribe for more stories that stay with you.